Thank you all so much. It's an absolute privilege for me to be here with you. I've loved my time when I was there in person with you, and I look forward to a time to be in person with you again. And in the meantime, it is a great time for us to bring some solace for ourselves. And before you write to me, correct my pronunciation, which I'm pretty accustomed to, because if you remember, I'm from Bug Tussle, Kentucky. So I often talk like I ain't got no education. And there's actually two pronunciations of the word solace and solace. And I'd love you to pause here and just say the word solace. Solace. And get a sense of what that would be if you took full responsibility for that. Because the definition of that is to give comfort in misfortune, to give comfort in grief, to give comfort in loss. Can anybody relate? You feel like you've had some misfortune? We've had a few boogers in our lives and this year. And so this solace that we're seeking, this solace that we're seeking, if it ever comes from another party, if it ever comes from anybody outside of ourselves, it's a bonus. It's grace, it's providence, it's a miracle. And it's also providence and grace and miracle for us to call forth and to cultivate solace and solace within ourselves, to give comfort to ourselves in times of loss, to give comfort to ourselves in times of mourning, in times of worry, doubt, fear, panic, whatever the case may be. So I think it calls us, particularly during this season, this spring season, this breaking forth of something new, this breaking out of some of this, the winter, the darkest days of our time, to come into light. And as spring breaks forth and spring comes forth, that it's incumbent on us. Maybe it's your Lenten practice to say, during these 40 days, I'm going to add a practice of giving myself spiritual care, spiritual solace, words of comfort, words of grace. It could be that I'm going to add a contemplation, of 5 minutes of contemplative time to my day, or 5 minutes of inquiry, like what would serve me right now? What would actually lift some of this heaviness off of me? So I want to put forth in this time as we go together some possibilities for us. And, you know, I can't do it for you. If I could, we'd all be free. Oh, we'd all be free. So I can't do it for us, but I'll do it for me the best I can. And I know that you'll do it for you the best you can, so that we actually put into this time and right now that we stop some of the madness. So what is it you would actually stop? If you wanted to comfort yourself, if you wanted to bring solace to yourself, solace, if you wanted to bring a consoling energy to yourself, something soothing, more soothing, what would you stop? What would you stop? Somebody says, I'd stop watching the news. Somebody said, I'd stop dramatizing. I would stop awfulizing. I would stop gossiping. I would stop self-hate and beating myself up. Stop shooting on ourselves. So begin to think about that then as your takeaway from today. What will I stop? What can I stop to move me in the direction of more peace in my mind, peace in my mind, peace in my soul, peace in my heart, to stop something? I'm also going to encourage you to take extra rest. Now, the brain scientists have proven this, Like we're in a time, the brain has been fried, the brain has been frazzled through this because we had all of our ducks in the row, you know, up here in this upper part of our brain. And that whole rug has been pulled out from under us. So the brain is still trying to get the ducks back in the row. And we don't know where to go. Are they open? Are they closed? Can we go? Can I know? Where's my mask? I don't know. Who's got it? Who's not? Is it real? Is not? What's... So it's like, extra rest. And only you know what rest is. It could mean no electronics in your bedroom. It could mean staying in bed an hour extra. It could be a restful walk just to enjoy nature, to see the buds on the trees. And that brings me to life, to interact with nature, to see a new bud. Like, oh my gosh, even through it all, these bulbs that are in my yard. And there were 7 inches of snow on these things. They had come up about this tall and then this tall and then snow and ice on all of them. And you know, folks, they didn't miss a beat. They're everyone there and they're still green. Like the mysteries of life, the mysteries of life. And it's my favorite thing about human beings is our resilience. So to stay tuned into just what power and potential we have. So some extra rest. It could be resting our minds. It could be a jigsaw puzzle. It could be playing a game with grandchildren. Only you know what it is, but some extra rest. And then here's one that we're not all that clued into lately. Delight. To use delight for solace, to use delight to comfort us. It could be remembering a trip. It could be looking at pictures. It could be just watching a kid. It could be your animals play. You know, this is why we'd rather hang out with pets than people. They're more enlightened. They're in delight. You know, they play with a ball, a string, they fetch. They walk off and go to bed when they need to. I mean, when you're in doubt about what to do, follow the animal. It's got more sense than we do when we're not cared for, when we're not tuned in, when we haven't stopped. We haven't stopped this or stopped that, when we have not took a time to exhale, to rest some. And then delight, like what would delight you? When's the last time you even thought about what would delight you? What would delight you? It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be, you know, New York City in Times Square on New Year's Eve. It may be, but what about this 300 days till then? Delight. And then the best. Contemplate God. Look for God in all things. Look for God in those bulbs, God in those blooms, God in that lettuce you're cutting up for your meal, God in the nuts and the bread. Well, remember when you ate bread? You'd have to think back on that. But just God in all things. We see God in a sunrise, God in a sunset. So, oh, here's God. God's like, okay, well, there's no place God is not. So to contemplate that, to be on purpose, to sit in my chair and look around at the life, the stitches in a quilt, the design of a quilt, the technology for the windows and the panes of glass on the house, the innovation, the mind that created that. So study, contemplating, finding God in all things, not big things, not just brilliant things, but all things, to give solace for myself, to give comfort for myself. And some of our earliest teachers are quoted as saying, I demand to see the blessing in this. I demand to see the blessing in this. We don't have to do a happy dance. I mean, when somebody gets a diagnosis or something, it's like no sane person goes, oh, this is just fantastic. However, we can go, okay, I'm contemplating God. I'm stopping. I'm going to stop myself before I get down that rabbit hole. I'm going to stop myself before I go into the torture chamber. I'm going to stop myself before I get into the horror movie of my projected images of my mind. So I'm going to circuit break that. I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to rest a bit. I'm going to calm myself. I'm going to care for myself. I'm going to speak positive words of love and care for myself. So I'm going to give comfort to myself, less and less dependent on the world doing it for me or people or my relationships. And then I'm going to contemplate God. What's an option for me here? What can I do here? And then this is the question that I love the most in this contemplative kind of space that's a spiritual practice. So anytime you're in a situation, you may feel like you're in a pit or in a lion's den or shutting down, suffering, whatever, even immobilized, like stuck, I can't move, especially in these times, to ask yourself, what purpose might God have for me in this? What might be the purpose of this? What might be a meaning in this that while I'm in it, I can't really see? But if I was willing to step back a little and to think broader and to gain some perspective, rest myself a little, care for myself a little, and then step back to say, okay, what could possibly be a meaning in this? How could I make meaning with this? So how can I take the pain and make it purposeful? How can I use this pain for purpose? How can I use this manure to grow something, to grow myself? So I don't just have to go through it. I'm going to grow through it, and I'm going to do so intentionally. And then it does not have to be done alone. You know, there's some things in our life that have to be done alone. Of course, there's deep inner work, but the majority of it does not have to be done alone, certainly not in isolation. That's the purpose, many purposes of a spiritual community, of a women's group, a men's group, a therapy, a coach, a mentor, others that can witness us in our humanness and can witness us in the whole of our humanity and remind us we're not alone in this. You are not alone in this. And then outside of the people, all the support that there is here for us with books and teachers and mentors and classes and spiritual communities and poetry and art and dance and movement and spiritual practice. Then there's the beauty of the Creator itself, Source itself, God itself, that says, you don't have a life. Life has you. I have you. There's no way to be separate from me. There's no way to be separate from Source itself. There's no way to be separate from breath. So then I'm being breathed, even to contemplate that. Like while we've been sitting here talking and listening, even in these few minutes, our bodies have been oxygenating cells and sorting it all out and rebalancing itself and renewing itself without a speck of input from us. I mean, can you find some solace in that? What a relief, huh? That I don't have to orchestrate all this. Well, for some of you that aren't free in that yet, you'll be frightened. But if you hang in there with it, just past that fear is liberation, that I don't have to make that my business. That I can bring solace to myself to know what I can do something about and what I cannot do something about. Then change what I can, accept what I cannot. more awake, more awake, more awake to the difference of that. So then another question could be, so just before I got on the class and the call today, this beautiful spiritual community, before I joined you, I heard two of my dear, dear friends playing piano in their home, one of them, and the other one singing. And they were singing, "What the world needs now is love." Did you notice it just came on in your head? What the world needs now is delight, huh? Did you get a little delight in that? See, just at an image of that, just a remembering of the lyrics, the words, the music, maybe sometime you sung it, and it matches the nature of our soul that says, okay, I'm kind of hanging on by a thread in some ways, but I'm going to have more love in the world. I'm intentionally going to do that today. I'm going to put more love in the world. So then whatever is coming, whatever's unfolding, whatever's coming at me, whatever, I'm stopping, resting, contemplating God, and I'm going to find some delight in something, and I'm going to put more love in myself. I'm going to give more love to myself. I'm going to bring more love through myself, and I'm going to put more love in the world. What the world needs now, what you need now, is love, more love for yourself, a solace of love, a salve of love, a balm of love. So what would that be like? I just accepted a challenge that somebody put out, one of my friends that's a beautiful, beautiful soul, to let's all write a love note to somebody. Go write a love note to somebody. Well, I've been cranking them out by the hundreds this year. I mean, you should see the postmaster's face when I come in there with another stack of these love notes. So a note, a love note, it could be a note of appreciation, a note of remembering, a note of encouragement, a note of prayer, something that would say, okay, it could be that you're on your walk today, you see a bug on its back. And it's like, turn the bug over. It could be some litter. Only you know what it is. And I'm working and using the book in some of the other teaching that I'm doing called the Universal Christ. The Universal Christ, how to be Christ-like, Christ-minded like, how to be in a Christ consciousness in all that I do, in all that I say, in all that I speak, in all that I think, in all that I pray, in action, in the woods, in the store, in the car. So you're welcome to join in all of those. They're all at my website, marthacreek.com. The Universal Christ, the letting go, the techniques of Dr. David Hawkins for the pathway to surrender, and then integrating the work of Byron Katie, which is inquiry. And it's once a month, no registration. You're just welcome to get out there and check it out. Come on in and join us. And then there's all sorts of videos available, all free, and interviews and all that at marthacreek.com too. So I believe you may find some solace in that, some solace in joining in, some solace in listening in. Whatever teaching is resonant with you, keep it close. Keep it close. Listen again and again. Listen over. Get out those books. Dust off those books that meant the world to you and get back in there, which is how I picked these. I dedicated this year, 2021, to going back into the books that I had a significant cellular, cognitive, spiritual, emotional shift through, which has been a majority of my books. And I picked that Universal Christ, the pathway of letting go, and then the work. 4 questions to change our lives. So dust off the books that meant a lot to you and bring solace to yourself as you read. It could be just a sentence or two from the book. So then what will you do today? What can you do today to bring more love to you? Love to you. And then love through you, knowing that the benefactor, as I'm giving love to somebody, I'm also the benefactor of that. So the whole is affected. Everything I do for myself is for others. Everything I do for others is also for myself, if you believe in quantum theory or the basic teachings of unity. So start to think about what that might look like for you. And then this one's a little more treacherous, this question. So some of you, I wish we could shut the door because some of you will try to get out of the class now. What character qualities, what consciousness qualities, what enhanced, uplifted qualities might God be encouraging me to birth in me? So as I look at this situation I'm in, as I look at this, what's got a hold of me, to see that this will expand my perseverance, that this will expand my resilience, this will expand my discernment, the nature to discern. It'll expand my will. It will expand all the 12 powers, will and understanding and imagination and faith and love and elimination and order. It will expand discernment, perseverance, stamina. It will grow my uncommon motivation to see something through and to know that even though if I can't see it, that this is taking me somewhere, that this is on purpose. So solace includes, and actually I think is an art, a spiritual practice of asking important, vital questions of ourselves, and then eventually of one another, vital questions of the world, and accepting these fiercely, fiercely difficult and unbeautiful moments as part of our human learning processes. They're included. I don't have to like them a bit. I don't have to love them for darn sure. And they're included. So then this solace is what we've got to look for when the mind cannot bear the pain, when it thinks it can't bear it, when the loss or suffering feels so heavy and weighted, especially then to be quicker at this, to not let that go too far without stopping and resting and contemplating God and God's presence in this. And then adding a flavor of delight to something today for me. So that we grow willingness, we grow stamina and resilience for knowing that not everything we want is going to come into fruition. We know that people are going to die and get sick. It's included here. We know then that our hope, and a grounded hope, has got to take a more mature, a more spiritual, higher consciousness form than the hope of a 3-year-old mind that still believes it's going to get what it wants. So then in this spacious, creative, causative, imaginative aspect of us, solace is spiritual practice. When disappointment comes, and it will, that it can be more accepted, more included, and then cared for. The disappointment can be cared for, rehabbed, rejuvenated, rehabilitated, hugged. So when life does not in any way add up, when you just cannot connect the dots, we've got to turn to the part of us that knows the truth. The part of us that's not dependent on a simple calculation for life. The part of us that can accept the mystery of life, even when we don't like it. the mystery of it. And then solace can be found in allowing this foundational, solid ground of wisdom to come forth, to be closer to us, that we have more access to this foundational wisdom. The part of us that already knows it's mortal. The part of us that already knows it's mortal. And the part of us that knows everything must take leave. Everything must take lead. And that can hold that loss and hold that disappointment and not miss the song of the bird. That can hear a bird song. That can see a bud on a tree. That can be amazed at that green breaking through the snow and that root system on that bulb that brought that bloom forth. And that the current of life is ever moving, ever changing, moving on, carrying, burying, birthing, and burying, and loss and celebration. And it's both and. It's both and. That I don't have to be so avoidant of the one and so dependent on the other, but that I can be consoled. I can find solace, and consolation in the full spectrum, even when it touches an epicenter of pain. The privilege of life, of being alive, and of feeling, of having a heart that knows loss and life, and letting go and lifting up, and. So it's not a cure. This is not a cure for suffering. Solace is not a cure for suffering. It's also not a made up state of mind. Solace is a direct participation through this stopping, resting, contemplating God, caring, self-care, spiritual care, and then sprinkles of delight at least, or a large heaping of delight, a truckload of delight here and there. So it's a celebration then, and if you can't celebrate or even contemplate celebration, at least it's an inclusion of the coming and the going, the appearing and the disappearing, both of which we've always been a part. So solace is an invitation to pass through the door of pain and difficulty, and to stop trying to make sense of it, to stop trying to make sense out of things we can't make any sense out of, and to practice being in that loss, and using it to cultivate generosity to self, generosity to others, compassion for self, compassion for others. So how will you do it? How will you shape and reshape your life equal to what's coming and what's going, what appears and what disappears? Take a pause. And as we apply this today in a time of meditation, Allow the words, the ideas, something that's been stirring and moving in you to have a place. And take a look at all the pain, all the suffering, all the loss, everything that's been in your experience. And get a sense, a knowing that it's been with purpose. That who you are, who you have become, and who you are becoming all of this had a part. And get a sense of laying down your burdens. Gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside. Let today be that day. What would that be like? To offload them, to offload the pain, to offload the resentments, to lay down anything that burdens you. To bring solace to your mind, to bring solace to your heart, to bring solace to your spirit. And take a big, deep breath. And get a sense of a new you that's been born here today, a new you that's been resurrected during this time to stop doing anything that suffers you. To take some rest, a big exhale of rest. Allow the shoulders to come down. And to contemplate God. How would you be in the world if your mission was to find God, to contemplate God? All the places, all the ways, infinite ways. The presence of God is in all things. And then get a sense of dialing up your delight dial. Delight in love, delight in life, delight in God's presence, and God's presence as you expressing. Big deep breath. We give thanks for this time. We give thanks for this awakening, this alignment, this atonement. We give thanks for renewal, for revitalization. We give thanks for the teachings, the spiritual community. And we give thanks for God having its way in us again and again and again. So be it. So it is. Amen. MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.